Welcome. I'm Erik Fleming, host of A Moment with Erik Fleming, the podcast of our time. I want to personally thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, then I need you to do a few things. First, I need subscribers. I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/A Moment with Erik Fleming. Your subscription allows an independent podcaster like me the freedom to speak truth to power and to expand and improve the show. Second, leave a 5-star review for the podcast on the streaming service you listen to it. That will help the podcast tremendously. Third, go to the website, momenterik.com. There you can subscribe to the podcast, leave reviews and comments, listen to past episodes, and even learn a little bit about your host. Lastly, don't keep this a secret like it's your own personal guilty pleasure. Tell someone else about the podcast. Encourage others to listen to the podcast and share the podcast on your social media platforms because it is time to make this moment a movement. Thanks in advance for supporting the podcast of our time. I hope you enjoyed this episode as well.
The following program is hosted by the NVG Podcast Network.
Hello, and welcome to another Moment with Erik Fleming. I am your host, Erik Fleming. Happy holidays to everyone as we are officially in the holiday season. I hope you and yours will have a good holiday season. And I'm honored that you're spending some of that time with me. On the show today, I have a young lady on who is doing her part to try to make her state better in our own unique way of serving the underserved. And then I have some returning guests to talk about their new project. And it's always a joy to have them come on. Still want people to subscribe as this is the season of giving. Give us a subscription. Give us your support financially. You can go to patreon.com/A Moment with Erik Fleming and do that, or you can go to momenterik.com and do the same thing. If you are a first-time listener, you can go to the website and catch up on other episodes that, get your fancy and all that, and just kind of peruse around the website. You'll find out a little bit about me, all the different guests that I've had on the show. And again, like I said, ways to support the work that we're doing. So, I'm not going to waste any more time. We're just going to go ahead and get this show started. And speaking about returning, Grace G is back. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a moment of news with Grace G.
Thanks, Erik. U.S. authorities have arrested a suspect believed to have planted pipe bombs at the Democratic and Republican national headquarters in Washington on the night before the January 6, 2021 Capitol assault. The suspect, accused of ambushing and shooting 2 National Guard members in downtown Washington, D.C., was charged with murder along with other offenses and ordered held without bond after his not guilty plea. President Trump caused anxiety among members of Congress by abruptly declaring the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela closed in its entirety. President Trump granted a full and unconditional pardon to Democratic Representative Henry Cuellar and his wife Imelda for bribery charges. Federal immigration officials began an operation in New Orleans to arrest immigrants in the U.S. illegally, focusing on criminal offenders released from local custody due to non-cooperation policies. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro signed the Crown Act into law, making Pennsylvania the 28th state to ban discrimination based on hairstyle, type, or texture. A federal judge issued a preliminary injunction blocking the Trump administration from enforcing a provision in 22 states that would deny Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood. 4 people were killed and 10 others injured after a mass shooting at a child's birthday party in Stockton, California. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, the first Black woman to serve 3 consecutive terms, announced she will not seek re-election in 2026. Camp Mystic, a Texas Christian summer camp where 27 campers died in a July 4th flash flood, announced plans to reopen in May at a nearby location with enhanced safety measures. And Viola Ford Fletcher, one of the last and oldest survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, died at age 111. I am Grace G., and this has been A Moment of News.
All right. Thank you, Grace, for that moment of news. And now it is time for my first guests, Bremond MacDougall and Lisa Cooper. Bremond MacDougall is a graduate of University of Texas at Austin with a BA in Spanish. While raising her 3 children between Austin and New York City, she amassed a collection of many thousands of books that make up what she calls a reader's library as opposed to a collector's library. Rather than first editions, it contains dog-eared favorites, collections from both of her grandmothers, complete with personal notes, and books she has yet to read. She and her husband helped to establish Eleanor Hall at St. Andrew's School in Austin, a kindergarten building named after her late mother, who was a champion of joyful learning. Board member of the Citizens Committee for Children of New York, a nonprofit that aims to advance well-being, equity, and justice for all of New York's children, she lives in Manhattan. Lisa Cooper is a lawyer by profession and attended Amherst College and the University of Texas School of Law. She has worked at a small Bay Area law firm that specializes in immigration law since 2008. A lifelong reader and book lover, her stint as the communications director for a school in Palo Alto undergoing a rebrand sparked her interest in publishing. Working with a graphic designer to rethink the school's print magazines, in an age that prioritizes digital experiences was an exciting and rewarding challenge. The mother of 2 adult daughters, she recently relocated to New York City. Now, these 2 ladies, Bremond and Lisa, are the publishers of Quite Literally Books, and they are return guests. And so they came on the first time with their first 3 books that they had published. And now they have 3 more books just in time for the holiday season, y'all. And so we're going to talk about those 3 books. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and privilege to have as guests on this podcast, the owners of Quite Literally Books, Bremond MacDougall and Lisa Cooper. All right. Bremond MacDougall and Lisa Cooper. How y'all doing? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. We're doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, especially get y'all to come back on. So for those listeners, this is your first time listening. My rule is that if I have guests on, they have an open invitation to come back. And Bremond and Lisa took advantage of that. They were on in April, if I'm correct, with their basically introducing the world to their publishing company, Quite Literally Books. And they had come out with 3 books to start it off. And so now they have 3 more books that they want to share with the world. And so they said, can we come back on? Yes, ma'am. Y'all, both y'all. Yeah, y'all can come on. So we're here. But I'm really glad that y'all are here. Thank y'all for doing this.
Thank you for having us. I think we did say it just like that. Can we come back on?
Yes. All right. So y'all know the rules. So the first thing we're going to do is get your responses to a quote. And the quote is, everybody wants to rule the world, but women might actually be better at it.
We've heard that before.
Uh-huh. My response to that quote, I think, is that we like to think that, and yet we like to think that if women ruled the world, it would be a more rational and humane place. But I think that may actually be only in literature, only in fiction, because women are human. And I'm not sure if the women who are in power, have positions of power right now in our country, I'm not sure that they're living up to that quote necessarily.
I definitely understand that. The quantifier would be, I've had a lot of social workers on, so they would say social workers that are women can rule the world better. But
That may be right.
Add to what Bremond said, it just would sort of be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? And that particular quote is about one of our books in which there is a world where there are no men at all. So that's an added sort of, facet to that question. Like, what happens if there is a world of only women?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And we'll get into that book and the other two as well. All right. So now it's time for 20 questions where you can give me a number between 1 and 20, but you can't give me number 11 because that's the one you did last time.
All right.
Choose one. Let's do it.
Okay. Do you want to know what it is?
Yes.
12. We're going with 12.
Okay. What advice do you have for recognizing fake news?
Oh, what advice?
I mean, what I do is I don't read news on my phone. I don't read breaking news that's on the internet. I try to use sources that are actually reporting what's happening and not making stuff up.
Yeah, it's sort of similar. I trust the news outlets that tend to vet their news, and I'm also aware of any biases that those particular outlets may, inherently hold, and try to get news from more than one source.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of hard not to get news from your phone now, because the technology and all that. But I'm old enough to remember going downtown and seeing the ticker on one of the places, billboards downtown is like, oh, the war ended. Okay, great.
Yeah, we know.
Keep it moving.
But I would think that TikTok is maybe not the best place to get your news, which I think a lot of young people now are doing.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day we'll get a Walter Cronkite to show up on TikTok. I don't know. Again, I'm dating myself, boys and girls. Some of y'all don't even know who Walter Cronkite is. Anyway, where do y'all look for these new books to publish? Because, like I said, this is your second release, so that's a total of 6 books. Where is the treasure trove to find these books, especially these new books that you've put out?
Well, most of the time we're doing a lot of research, either online or going to libraries. But with these 3 new books, it was a little different, wasn't it? One of them we found at a used bookstore. One we were recommended, this author, by someone that we knew. Came to us and was like, hey, have you ever heard of this author? And we were like, nope. And went down that rabbit hole, and we ended up publishing one of her books. And we also look to authors that may be familiar to us, but have works that are unfamiliar to us. So that's how we ended up with Charlotte Perkins Gilman's Herland.
Okay.
Whereas 3 were more research and serendipity in the library. I think they were all 3 library sort of things that we found.
Yeah. How has your personal satisfaction in publishing lost books grown over the last year?
Oh, that's a good question. It is very satisfying to have in your hot little hands a book that you have conceived of, from beginning to end, the whole production of it. And when you get it, it's a thrill. That's true. I think that what we've learned in this intervening time period is that it is one thing to make a book, and it is a very different thing to market a book and then different again to sell the book. And we've had to spend a lot more time doing the not so fun stuff, right? And that's been a really steep learning curve for us.
Because the publishing book we still love. We love doing that. We love finding the books and talking about them and reading different books, all of that. The selling has been
a drag.
Yeah.
It's been a drag because that's not the fun part. It is really fun to have conversations with people who are excited about it. So that aspect of, selling, so to speak, is really exciting.
And the idea that we're getting books in people's hands, that is like, when you sell a book, that's really exciting. It's more the sort of business aspect of how do you sell books that is, I don't know, different and harder, I think, than we thought it would be.
And the publishing world is not set up for the success of small presses. It's not. It's a David and Goliath kind of thing, and finding the channels. Like, you have to have a distributor, and we do have one, but it's a small distributor. It's not the one that, that the most bookstores rely on. And just like finding, like, every time we think we're making some headway, like there's a roadblock or something that we have to sort of be creative in our approach to getting around it. And we're new to this. Like, we don't have years and years of experience figuring this out. But we are figuring it out, and we have some good people advising us. And I feel like every day we, meet people who are just so excited about what we're doing and are so happy to jump in and, advise and share expertise and knowledge. So it's been good.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of like my follow-up question. Since the last time we talked, what have you learned about the publishing business since then? And it's obviously sounds like you learning about distribution and sales and all that. Is there anything else that's been kind of nuanced to y'all?
It is a business. I think we did not pay as much attention maybe, or we didn't think as much about how, it's a business. We are running a small business. We're not just doing the fun stuff that we have to do all of it. You can't really, cut out this stuff that you don't want to do.
That probably sounds really obvious to your listeners, like as you're saying it. I'm like, oh gosh, we sound like idiots, but it's more just that before, when you're in production, when you're searching for the books and you're designing the books, you're very much in that world. And now we've had to shift our focus and sort of wear two hats. And it's
hard. And we had this dream, right? Like, we had this idea and this dream, and it was going to be so much fun, which it has been. But that's all sort of pie in the sky. It's not really the nuts and bolts of like, how do you do it?
Right.
And there's a difference there.
Yeah.
Well, politics is the same way, ladies. I can tell you, it's like, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'd like to pursue that position. I think I could do well in that. I've got some ideas and all that stuff. And then you get out there and you start campaigning, and then somebody says something about your mama and stuff. And then it's like, well, wait. Hold on.
And in the background, you have to be raising money, right?
Oh my God. I used to hate that, Lord. It was almost like I was on punishment. The fundraiser would say, all right, this is call time. And I got to sit there, and it's like, hey, Jim, how you doing? Yeah. Representative Fleming, look, that time. Oh God, I hated that part of it. But it was like, all that stuff is necessary in order to get stuff done. So I feel your pain. I've been there. You know what I'm saying? I got you.
It's still the dream. You have to do some stuff that,
Yeah, you got to make the dream a reality.
Yeah.
I think too, it's probably like politics in the sense that, like, we did sort of have an idealized version about, how we could do this. And some of the realities, again, because we're so small, trying to get attention, trying to get traction, trying to get into stores, like it's not really for the idealistically pure. Like, it's hard to kind of hang on to that pie in the sky, feeling.
Well, it's maybe
what you're doing. Like,
it may be not unlike a sort of grassroots political campaign. It's sort of a grassroots, come join us, come with us, come, turn away from the big boys a little bit and, look at what somebody else is doing over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. All right, so let's talk about these books. Now, we mentioned the first book, Her Land by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So as we go through the books, just kind of tell the listeners who the author is and then kind of go into what the book is about.
So Charlotte Perkins Gilman was writing in the early part of the 20th century. She wrote a short story called The Yellow Wallpaper, which a lot of kids still read in high school. It's it's anthologized a lot, and that's how we knew her. And she was a great champion of women's rights and a great feminist. She was also a eugenicist, which seems to happen a lot with sort of progressive thinking people in the early part of the 20th century. So, there's some nuance there in how we look at her a little bit. And the world that she's created in Her Land is this idealized female utopia that has been in existence for 2,000 years. There are no men. It is a peaceful and prosperous and beautiful society. They have developed a way to reproduce without men, there's a name for that, and I cannot remember what it is. Parthenogenesis, yes. Parthenogenesis? I may be adding a syllable. Anyway, and so the story is sort of about these three explorers come into their world and find this world that they cannot fathom that there are not men there. They just keep looking for the men. Why? The roads are so straight and beautiful, right, and the buildings are...
Everything is perfectly done. Men must have done it, is their conclusion.
Yeah. Anyway, and the end of it is sort of, I don't know, don't want to give that away, but
yeah, we won't give away the ending, but it's a really interesting exploration of what would happen if not only women ran the world, but if the world actually didn't have men in it. Yeah. And then what happens when men literally drop in from the sky and start mixing it up.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Tocqueville showing up, like he discovered America, his book about America. So these people are like the Tocquevilles, and they find this female utopia, and they're trying to figure out how does this work and all that kind of stuff. Is that kind of a good gist of that?
Yes, that sounds about right.
It's a very, it's written by a woman, but I think she does a good job of characterizing these men, and they're very familiar. They are very familiar in their desire to explore and conquer a new world and be the first ones to be there, even though there are millions of people already living there. They're not the first ones there, right? Like there are already people there.
Right.
And
yeah, each of the male characters, there's three of them, they all sort of represent misogynists we have known and loved over the centuries. I mean, they represent an archetype, and the way she has them interact with each other and with Her Land is pretty funny.
Okay. All right. So now the second book is called Who Would Have Thought It by María Amparo Ruiz de Burton. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
We think so. We think that sounds right to us. So that was the one that was recommended to us. Someone, came to us and said, "Hey, have you heard of this author?" We had not. So she wrote this book in 1872. She was born in Baja California, I believe, to landowning Mexican family. She gets married to a rising star in the Union Army right around the time, the Civil War is percolating. And this has her going around the country, living in different areas, and having access to the politically elite, to those circles, and she's there as a participant and as a fly on the wall and as a Mexican American woman. And so basically this book that she wrote is a very witty satire. It's a rollicking Civil War saga that pretty much skewers the Northern abolitionists in a way, and at a time when I don't think they were expecting to be skewered. But we found it to be not only super funny, it's very insightful and very applicable to our country today. I found it fascinating and page-turning, and and really, really funny on top of it. It's like Mark Twain, I guess, a little bit. Burr thinks it's a little bit like Louisa May Alcott as well.
There's something, there's some feeling there. But it was a very unexpected book for us. And it does not seem like a book that was written 150 years ago. It was a long time ago. It does not feel like something that has been sitting around that long. And it has kind of been sitting around. It's not well known. And it was the first novel written in English for an English speaking audience by a Mexican American woman.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's actually, a lot of our books did really well at the time they were printed. This one didn't. And when you read it, you kind of figure out why, because, it's like poking fun and being critical of this sort of like, I think people who after the war felt pretty good about themselves and how things had gone down. But she's pointing out the hypocrisy of people who would put their lives on the line to free Black people who are enslaved, and yet would have a really hard time having one sit down at their dinner table.
Or even walk down their sidewalk.
Yeah, like the inherent hypocrisy sometimes that is, you can be abolitionist and still be tool of white supremacy.
Frightfully racist, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that definitely sounds intriguing. I didn't get a chance to read any of these books before we got started, but that definitely sounds intriguing. And you're right. And that kind of gets me to a question I might ask later. The third book is called The Little Dinner by Christine Thurhoon Herrick. And this one definitely is a little different than what y'all are kind of looking for. So kind of talk about that.
It is. Letha found this one on the shelf in a used bookstore, and I think was attracted to it just because it looked sort of interesting. The cover was
cute.
It was a cute cover. And then when we read it, we were struck. It's a cookbook, but it's also a sort of a manual on how to give this thing that she calls the little dinner, which is a meal for 6 to 8 people, which now we would, I never,
dinner.
If I have people over for dinner, I would never have more than 6 or 8. That's a lot. But at that point in time, this is 1892. Is that when it's written? 1892. A little dinner, a regular dinner might have, 18 people. And so this is sort of a paring down of that and a sort of a how to have this kind of dinner if you don't have more than one servant, if you don't have, it's pared back, but not in a way that we would necessarily recognize today. But it is so funny. Her wit is biting, and Lisa and I just sort of howled with laughter as we were reading this book. And then, so the first part of it is sort of her prose about how you do this, how you pick the people that come to your meal, how you pick the meal, how you set your table. And she's particularly biting in how you pick the people that come to your meal. Bores need not apply.
Yeah.
And
he says, life is too short for busy people to waste any portion of it in cultivating uncongenial acquaintances. Uninteresting people doubtless have their uses in the great economy of nature, but their place of service is not at the dinner table.
Which we just love.
Yeah.
And then the recipes are, some of them are they're very, they're old fashioned, and some of them are goofy things like canned peas, which is you open the can of peas and drain them and then cook them in butter.
It was delicious, but
it was. We made it.
Oh, so y'all made y'all cooked everything that was in the cookbook.
Not everything.
No, we
have avoided the haunch of venison and the brace of pheasants.
We haven't done the oyster pates and things like that, but we did try a few of them just because we were like,
the roast reed birds. What even are those? The broiled woodcock.
Yeah, we didn't do those, but we did do the peas, and we did the cream spinach, which was also delicious. We did a few things.
So it's fun and funny.
And she was an interesting person too, the author. So Herrick was sort of like the Martha Stewart of the time, and she wrote bunch of books and articles all on housekeeping, homemaking, child rearing, cooking, all the above. And she did it because her husband died of typhoid, leaving her with small children. And this is, she turned to the pen. And we've seen that happen over and over again.
Well, Ruiz de Burton was similar. The woman who wrote Who Would Have Thought It? She was widowed young and had to make her way in the world with 2 kids. And she originally published her book under a pseudonym because a female Mexican-American author would have sold even more poorly than she did as, what is she? H.S. Burton, I think, is what she published under. But yeah, The Little Dinner is different than anything else that we have, but it's funny and fun. And we just thought it was a good one to put out there. People have responded really well to it.
So when you were describing the book, I kept thinking about that ChatGPT commercials. Have you seen those? Where it's like this, it's one particular one. It's like this guy and this girl is sitting in a car and she's like trying to get him to tell her where we're going and all that stuff. And they drive off on this country road and you see mountains and trees and all that. And then a ChatGPT starts scrolling and said, "This is how you do a surprise getaway," and just started going through all the stuff and said, and take these roads and all this stuff. And I kept saying, when you were describing the book, I said, that would be what we would do now. We would it's like, okay, we want to have a little dinner. What would we do? And then ChatGPT would roll all that stuff down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just amazing how we've gotten to this point, and I'm guilty of it because of my schedule and, with the podcast and with my real job. So a lot of books, I very rarely get to hold the book in my hand. Usually it's like, is it on Audible? Okay, cool. Can I put it on Kindle and then just, and read it that way? But we talked about this the first time about just the feel of being able to read a book, just to hold it in your hand and just, like I said, nowadays it's like, hey, AI, what you think we should be doing? It did. Cause they've got programs now where I want to write a book about a murder mystery and with a political background, and the AI will crank out a book for you. How do you, as people that, look for these authentic, writings and all that stuff, how does that make y'all feel? Do y'all feel some kind of way about it, or is it just kind of like, this is what we're competing against? How do y'all navigate through that?
Well, I would just say right off the bat that I just think it's sad. It feels sad to me for 2 reasons. I honestly don't believe that AI can reproduce human creativity. I don't see that happening. And I've looked at, AI generated art. I've even read AI generated like short stories. Like, I can't remember who it was, but someone a few months ago, a short story writer, sort of went up against, ChatGPT. Like, they were given the same prompt basically, and they wrote it. And then it was given to us to determine which one was, which one we liked better, I guess. And I thought that even though I could immediately tell which was which, and one was like very perfectly constructed and like hits all the things that your, 7th grade English teacher told you to hit, like when you're writing a short story. But thank you, Margaret Marcus, our beloved 7th grade English teacher. But it just, there were no surprises in it, and it was kind of flat, and so I don't believe that it's ever going to really replace human creativity. And I think that books, we keep forgetting that we say AI is such great technology, but books are the ultimate like technological advancement and tool, and they still continue to be. Nothing is going to spark your, I think, imagination and allow you to live a different life for a moment, be in someone else's shoes the way that this book will. This is technology, y'all. It is. And we forget that.
Yeah. That's cool. Out of the 3 books, which one do you think encapsulates where we're at now? Do you think all three books do it, or is there one particular book that kind of like, yeah, this is kind of like what we're dealing with at the moment?
I feel like Who Would Have Thought It is extremely relevant
Spot
at this
on.
moment.
Actually, in a lot of ways.
The political situation that she describes, the factions, the way the society is split, it just seems, and the politicians that she describes, it just feels, gosh, a lot like what we're dealing with right now.
There is, I think he's a Danish historian who just recently gave a speech that was then censored by the BBC. And I cannot remember what his name is, but I saw an excerpt of his speech. And one of the things, and by the way, he was censored because he called Trump like the most, I think, outwardly corrupt, president ever. But the rest of his speech that I did get to hear, he talks about this rise or the success of like shamelessness. Like these are the shameless are the ones who are in power right now. And this book, Who Would Have Thought It, is all about that. It's about populism and incuriosity and
mercenary,
and
mercenary. I don't know.
Yes,
being mercenary.
Yes, mercenary.
Yes.
And shamelessness being just the most, like, it is the road to power. It's like, how shameless and mercenary can you be? We will reward that. We will give you more power. And we see that throughout this book, and we are certainly seeing it now.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's the old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. And, and I try to tell people in the podcast, it's like, in America, we've been through this before. It seems crazy now because we're inundated with stuff, like you said, through our phone and everything else. But yeah, human nature is human nature. And so how we navigate through all that, you know what I'm saying? That's what defines us in the moment. Yeah. So I'm definitely, okay. Who would have thought it? All right. I'm definitely going to mark that.
We don't title.
Yeah. We would like to rename it. Maybe we've been calling it just, behind the scenes, Who'd Have Thunk It? Cause we couldn't remember the title for the longest time.
All right. Well, whichever title y'all decide, I think I'm going to get that. What's your timetable for finding and publishing the next set of books?
Well, we've been working about that, actually. Yeah. We, this first year we did 6 books because we wanted to lay some tracks. 6 a year is tough for us, given the fact that we have to sell them and that there's limited space in Bremond's basement, which is where we keep our books right now. So, yeah, we're thinking maybe 3.
I think we're thinking 3, maybe probably next fall. Give us time to market and sell the ones that we've got. And then it takes 5 months to get books ready for publication. Is that, or less than that?
I think it's less than that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
4 months.
It's funny. Like the first round, we didn't know what we were doing. We had lots of people helping us, but it could have been that there were more cooks than we needed in the kitchen, which sort of made our process longer. And so one of the things we're doing this round is we're just trying to be smarter and more efficient about it, streamline the process. I think we can actually get it down after having some conversations with people. I think we can get it down, to about maybe a month and a half to the most, actually. And then the actual printing doesn't take that long. It takes like 6 weeks, I think, total.
But, human nature being what it is, and we are all humans, a month and a half to 2 months will absolutely be 3 or 4. Like there's
not just the production process.
No doubt.
Production process only. If we
making anything,
if we get everything teed up, then the actual making of the book is not that long.
So it'll be a minute before we have anything new out, but we'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah. We'll do that. So since this is the holiday season and people are looking for great gifts and we need to get these books out of Bremond's basement, how can people reach out to y'all and get the books and even reach out to y'all for some ideas about, publishing or being in the book business?
Well, first of all, please come to our website, which is quite literally books.com. You can order our books directly from us. And when you order them from us, they come already wrapped. They look so pretty and ready for the holidays. And you can, of course, get them through your local independent bookseller. If we are not on their shelves, they can get us on their shelves using either Asterism, which is our distributor, but you can also ask them to order directly from us as well. We wholesale our own books as well. So those are two really great ways. And we love getting emails from people who want advice on what to buy or want to chat about a book or anything.
Have a book that they love, that they love to see in print.
Please tell us what you want to see in print. We love that. And that's, you can get through to us through our website, but it's write us at quiteliterallybooks.com.
Right.
And we're on Instagram.
Oh yeah. On Instagram. Boy, are we.
Yeah.
I understand that social media. I'm on it just because of the podcast, and it's just like, oh my God, just, I think the term they use is doom scrolling.
Yes.
And I'm really trying to wean myself from that. I'm just the people that are talking to me, that's all I want to do. I don't want to deal with anything else.
So you get sucked in.
Oh my God. Yeah. So look, Bremond, Lisa, thank y'all for coming back on. I wish you much continued success on the books. And again, ladies and gentlemen, it's Christmas time, and they said that the books come already gift wrapped. Yep. I love that. I wish I could go every store. There used to be a time where you could do that, where it's like you go to the store and then they have a little service department and you run as like, hey, I need this wrapped, and they'll do it for you and all that. It's like, so that's a nice touch. But ladies, again, thank y'all for doing this. Again, much success and happy holidays to both of y'all.
Thank you so much, Erik.
All right, guys. We're going to catch y'all on the other side. All right, and we are back. And so now it's time for my next guest, Tomekia Moore. Tomekia Moore serves as the executive director of the Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association, where she leads statewide efforts to address poverty, build organizational capacity, and advocate for low-income to moderate-income Arkansans. Since stepping into this role in 2023, she has focused on advancing results-oriented initiatives, engaging policymakers at the state and federal levels, and amplifying the voice of community action across Arkansas. Tomekia played a pivotal role in securing a $600,000 capacity-building grant in partnership with the University of the Ozarks, launching a groundbreaking initiative to work alongside churches to drive community-level change. This initiative integrates a statewide approach to food and nutrition insecurity, with a particular focus on underserved and rural communities. She also leads the Arkansas Pathways to Self-Sufficiency Initiative, a coordinated multi-sector strategy addressing the complex and interconnected drivers of poverty through regional task forces and collective impact frameworks. A champion for leadership development, Tomekia initiated the ACAAA Leadership Academy, which equips emerging and current leaders across Arkansas with the skills, confidence, and tools to thrive in their roles and better serve their communities. Her journey with ACAAA began in 2022 as the Director of Professional Development, where she created and delivered training opportunities to strengthen the statewide community action network. Her background also includes frontline and community-centered roles as unit director of the Boys and Girls Club of McGee and as a Head Start teacher with community service offices, giving her a firsthand understanding of the programs and people she now leads. Tomekia holds a Bachelor of Science in Early Childhood Education degree from the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff and a Master of Public Service from the Clinton School of Public Service, where she was selected by her peers to serve as the student graduation speaker. She is a nationally certified Roma trainer, certified family development instructor, and certified group facilitator. She was recently recognized in Marquis' Who's Who in America for her professional accomplishments and civic impact. Her deep commitment to children and families is reflected in her service across numerous boards and coalitions, including the Arkansas Kids Coalition, Steering Committee member for Economic Justice and Citizens for Congress, a collaborator with Excel by 8, co-chair Bank on Arkansas, member State of Arkansas Weatherization Policy Advisory Council, member of the Business Diversity Committee, Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce, and member of the Finance and Advocacy Committees for the Junior League of Little Rock. Tomekia is a respected thought leader, advocate, and connector dedicated to building systems that empower communities and ensure that all Arkansans have a fair opportunity to thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and privilege to have as a guest on this podcast, Tomekia Moore. All right, Tomekia Moore, how you doing this morning?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, doing well. Very glad to be here this morning and glad to share.
All right. Well, happy holidays to you, by the way.
Well, same to you.
Yeah. All right. So normally how I do these is that I do like a little icebreaker period to kind of get the conversation going. And so the first icebreaker is a quote that I want you to respond to.
Okay.
And the quote is, when everyday Arkansans win, we all win. What does that quote mean to you?
You're using my own words this morning. I love it. You know, in community action, we believe in all people. So that's the premise there. It doesn't matter what your background is, where you come from, how much money you have, what you look like. Everyone deserves that pathway to a quality life, a life in which they can thrive and flourish and just be proud, right? So that's where that comes from. When everyday Arkansans win, we all win. And we know that when everybody's on that path, they're contributing positively to their community. And that's just a plus for everybody.
Okay. Now, my next icebreaker is what we call 20 questions. So I need you to give me a number between 1 and 20.
Between 1 and 20. I'm going to go with the far end, 20.
Okay. What is one thing you'd like to learn from someone with a different perspective than yours?
One thing that I would like to learn from someone with a different perspective than mine, I think it would be the ability to commit, I think, without condition, without pressure, if that makes any sense. I think that I admire, I think, a person when they are just fully committed to whatever that cause may be. There's something to be said about that level of commitment, and they're not afraid. There's no limits. Albeit, sometimes the commitment to which that is attached to is questionable. But it's being able to commit without fear and without limits, without boundaries, if you will. I've always been very curious as to how that works. And that's not to speak illy of my commitment to my line of work in community action. But also we go about our processes with a level head. We apply logic to what we do, and we think things through. But again, just being able to jump straight in and it almost seems as though there is no question as to how this is going to work out. I have to say I do admire that in a person, just being able to fully commit without fear, without limits, without boundaries.
Yeah, that's interesting. I often wonder that too sometimes, how people can do it. I think there's been certain people in our lives, maybe when we were younger, that we did that too, but as we got older and more professional, I guess, we started applying, like you said, logic and trying to, is this person really making sense? Do I really want to stick my neck out for that person? Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I'm always been curious as how can you do that? How can you sleep at night? But that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, talk to the listeners about your journey to become the executive director of the Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association, Inc.
Well, I always refer to my career path as being whimsical in that it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense in perfect harmony. And I'll tell you, just thinking back to my younger years, I had no idea that I would end up in this line of work. I always thought that maybe psychology, maybe teaching, which I did end up teaching for a while. And funny thing, little third grade Tomekia, I declared, and my parents will confirm this. I declared as a third grader that I would actually go on to be the first Black woman to be the president of the United States in the third grade. From the east side of Pine Bluff, I just knew this was going to happen. And I was very confident in that belief, which I'm thankful today because I did go on to become the first Black woman to lead community action across the state of Arkansas. So I'm very proud of that, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. But just thinking back to that career path, when I finally figured it out, and we don't fully figure things out, right? We're always learning. But when I got an idea of what purpose looked like in my life, I knew that I just wanted to show up and be there for others. Others that needed a voice, others that needed a champion in their lives. So initially that started out as teaching. I wanted to influence young people and young lives and be there for children and their families. And eventually that led into youth development work where I started and founded my own youth development program in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Went on to become unit director for the Boys and Girls Club of McGee, and then eventually landed at the State Association for Community Action in Arkansas, first in the role of professional development director and now as the executive director.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to be president when I was 3 years old. And because I just thought in the World Book Encyclopedia, I just thought that was the coolest article because like the first 2 pages were nothing but pictures, right? And then, and I said, I want to be one of those portraits, right? And so everybody, like you said, deviates in their path, but and I didn't get where I wanted to be president, but I'm just glad that, I was able to do something in politics and achieve some things. So I definitely feel you on that. What is a community action agency?
So community action has deep roots across the nation, actually. We are a 61-year-old network nationwide. We span 1,000 plus local agencies and state associations. So just looking at Arkansas, there are 15 local agencies across the state of Arkansas. These agencies have reach across all 75 counties in Arkansas. And the infrastructure is so interesting because we're able to do a lot with a little. We are congressionally mandated to fight the war on poverty, so I guess I'll start there. And of course, we know that there are many complexities when it comes to poverty, right? There's no one sure path to how to eradicate it and to speak to the needs of communities. So, with that infrastructure across our agencies and across our network, agencies speak to the immediate needs of their communities. So, that is why with community action agencies, you're going to see a variety of services, which might include Head Start and child care services. housing services, services that speak to workforce development, economic mobility, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. If there is a need across a community, we do have boots on the ground that are delivering those services. And again, that's a work that I'm so proud of because it speaks to the empowering of communities. So we don't just go in and start a service or a program or an initiative. We actually check in with our communities. We're in conversation with our communities. We're speaking to our communities and we're hearing and we're listening to our communities because the thought there is, after all, they are experts on what's going on in their communities, right? So they definitely should have a say in solutions that speak to the challenges across their communities. So that's my favorite piece to the whole process, is that empowering piece in which we are championing our communities, giving them agency, voice, and choice throughout the entire process.
Yeah. And like you said, this was an offshoot of the war on poverty legislation that President Johnson pushed forward. And like you said, y'all been doing it. And, in Mississippi, that, the first time I had ever heard the term community action agency, it was connected to Head Start. That was each agency was responsible for the Head Start and the Head Starts in their area. And, and as I, got more involved and engaged, it was like, oh, they do this and they do that too. So I'm glad you kind of explained a little bit about some of the services that you provide. There's two particular things in Arkansas that y'all are doing. So kind of talk to the listeners about the Kids to College program and the R Connect program.
Sure. So I'll start with Kids to College. That is a program that we do in partnership with Entergy Arkansas. And I will just say, throughout history, traditionally, Entergy Arkansas has been a really good partner to community action in Arkansas. They've been very supportive of a number of works and initiatives that we do. But specifically, Kids to College, it is a program. It actually hits a couple of components there. Number one, we're teaching or promoting, rather, youth financial literacy. And so the way that works is through Kids to College, children as old as 16, so from birth to age 16, they're offered a free child savings account. And Entergy Arkansas, being as awesome as they are, when the family actually opens up the account, they seed the account with $50 off the top. So there's nothing they have to do. There's no requirement or anything connected to that. Once you enroll, once you open the account, you automatically get $50 just for opening the account. And then throughout the remaining part of this year, we don't have long in 2025, but throughout the remaining part of 2025, Entergy will match any money that's put into that account by the family up to $300. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like going into 2026, but that offer is still on the table as 2025 remains. Now, looking at some components of the program, again, the intent is to promote youth financial literacy. But the other tenet to that is that we also want to promote the pursuit of higher education, right? So the name of the program is Kids to College. So I guess that's a given. But we also understand that there are multiple ways, right, to achieve higher education today or to achieve some form of education post high school. That doesn't always look like a 2-year college or a 4-year university, right? Our kids are so resourceful today. In fact, we have children that are making millions of dollars just from being TikTokers and YouTubers and all of these really neat things. So we want to make sure that the door remains open. So not just limiting that to a 2-year college or 4-year university, we also want to make sure the children have a path to, let's just say, trade programs, to certifications. We realized that as we went through COVID, right, that we had a shortage of essential workers across our country, people that did electricity. So where were the electricians? Where were the plumbers? Where were, all of these different people that we needed? So we want to make sure that those pathways are there. And through this program, it is certainly opening up the door. So with this child savings account, the families can actually take the monies from this account, including what they deposit, including what Entergy Arkansas deposits as they provide the matches, and apply this to any cost affiliated with the pursuit of higher education or seeking a trade or certification or that sort of thing. And let's just say we're in a perfect world and the child aces it through high school and they get all sorts of scholarships, right? So tuition is covered. But what about a cost for a car? What about costs for lodging? What about costs for books? What about costs for food, et cetera, et cetera? They can take this money and use it in any way to cover those expenses. So it's very flexible. It's there for the child. They can actually withdraw this money at any time. There's no maturation date in which, let's just say, they have to wait till they're 18. No, they can actually withdraw this money at any time. So there are no strings attached. It is free. Again, you get $50 just for opening it, and Entergy throughout the remaining part of 2025 will match the deposits from the family up to $300. There are a few things. Wait, no, I just wanted to put out there as far as requirements. I did mention that the children have to be from birth to age 16, but also in looking at income, a dual income earner household, that's up to $80,000. Single parent earner household, that's up to $60,000. And we wanted to try to make sure that we could capture as much of or catch rather as much of the population as we could in that ceiling there. So to make it available to as many families as possible. And other than that, just being an Entergy customer, having an Entergy account number, that sets you up for being eligible for Kids to College.
Yeah. And before you got into the R Connect part, I had some questions. So the cutoff to start an account is 16, but you can keep the account all the way to your 18 or 19, whatever.
Yeah, as long as you get it before you reach the age of 17. So as long as you're still 16 years old, you can still open up an account. And yes, you can keep it as long as you need to. Once it's open, it's open.
Okay. So now when you say the match, so let's say I decide every paycheck I want to put $50 in my child's account. So every time I make a deposit, Entergy Arkansas is going to match whatever I deposit?
That is correct.
Oh, that's...
Throughout the remaining part, now I will say, as a disclaimer, throughout the remaining part of 2025, I'm not sure if that is going to continue into 2026 yet. We haven't discussed that part yet. But if funds are there, there's been some discussion around that. So we will have to see going into 2026. But yes, throughout the remaining part of this year, the answer is yes.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds a lot like the individual development accounts that they had tried to start up. And I think it was supposed to go through community action agencies too, where people could put X amount of dollars in, but they had to have like a certain amount of money when they withdrew, and then the federal government was going to match that, and then you could use that like to go to school or buy a car or put a down payment on a house or wherever the case may be. So that's pretty cool. All right, go ahead and talk about Art Connect.
Okay. So there needs to be, and we are in the process of updating our website. And the reason I say that is that our Connect is one of those former programs in which we were affiliated with. So you can definitely look for some updates to the ACA website. However, one of the things that's in connection to that that I would love to talk about today is Arkansas Pathways to Self-Sufficiency. This is a program in which we've brought together 122 organizations from across the state of Arkansas. And this coalition is really unique in that there are so many different perspectives that have been brought to the table. So across these 122 organizations, you have people from corporate America, such as Entergy Arkansas, Baptist Healthcare, and then you have your nonprofits as well as government organizations and legislators. So everyone's at the table and a part of this conversation in which we're really taking a hard look at how do we move Arkansans forward. The end goal is to create a self-sufficiency model that speaks to the needs of the entire state. So regardless of what your physical capabilities are, regardless of any other factors, we want to make sure that all Arkansans have a pathway to a life that speaks for of quality, to a life that speaks to being able to flourish and thrive in our great state. So the reason I'm talking about that in connection to AR Connects is that there are 8 task forces within this initiative. One of those is our Digital Opportunity Task Force. And in this task force, we have members from the Arkansas State Broadband Office, as well as some great partners from the University of Arkansas and their Division of Agriculture. And their main goal is to increase digital access across the state, as well as the capacity, right, across the state, because it doesn't work if you have access and you don't really know how to utilize the tools that you have available to you. So that is something that we're really taking a hard look at across our state. How can we leverage those opportunities across our state and make sure that more Arkansans have that access?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. And that was something that I haven't been in the legislature in it's almost been 20 years now. And so like in the early 2000s, we were talking about that in Mississippi about making sure that everybody had internet access and, broadbanding the whole state and all that stuff. I don't know if they've ever done it, but like I said, it's been a conversation that now that, the technology is advancing, but government moves slower than technology. And so, I really hope that, that every state has access for their people, especially those in underserved communities, that they have access to the internet or digital access. And like you said, know how to utilize it so our children can have a chance and not only compete with other children across the country, but kids around the world. So I think that's important. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that y'all are a major part in making that happen. What challenges are the community action agencies facing in this current political climate?
I think right now, what's common across all nonprofits and people that provide direct services just in general, of course, it's the funding structure. And when you look at that, with funding being as limited as it is right now and the need being so great, that does become a really valid conversation, right? But one of the things that we're doing to combat that in Arkansas, as I just mentioned, Arkansas Pathways to Self-Sufficiency, we realize now that we have to come together now more than ever. So coalitions, right? That's the key. And I think funders, individuals working in philanthropy, right? All of these different sources, they love a good coalition. And I think we are stronger in numbers. So as we identify these challenges and we work through these challenges, we realize that the answer lies in working together.
Yeah. So that was very good. And I appreciate you giving the answer that you gave. You know, my experience in government has been learning that it's not a funding shortage as it is a priority shortage, right? I think that, you know, in this country, we have the money to do what we want to do. And I think the challenge that you and other of your contemporaries have is that our priority is we're going to spend money on defense and we're going to spend money on, I don't know, Bitcoin or something like that. But we're not putting money into people or putting money into healthcare, wherever the case may be. So that's my answer to that, to my own question. That is a priority deal. And I think go ahead.
Well, no, and sorry to interrupt, but you're, spot on with that. I think it's a matter of just reframing that, right? Because we know that the purse strings are attached to the things that we care about, right? The things that we prioritize, right? And when I say that, I'm referring to our policymakers and those that do have the power of the purse. But I always like to kind of flip things, if you will, when I identify like a negative. I always like to try to apply a positive to it because I just believe that's being solution oriented. So even in looking at that challenge within itself, I know that I have an opportunity. I'm not even going to say a challenge. I have an opportunity to become louder, to push my story out there. I have an obligation to the communities that I serve to paint the picture, if you will, so that they can see the need, so that they can make this a priority. And I'm just going to keep hope alive. We'll keep fighting and we'll keep pushing.
That's right. That's all you can do. The late Congressman John Lewis is famous for encouraging others to get into good trouble. Why have you adopted this as your personal mantra?
Because that's what it takes, right? At the end of the day, get in good trouble, necessary trouble. And, in this line of work, we realize that in order for work to happen, in order for change to take place, that you just have to speak truth to power. We have to continue to tell our story. We have to continue to be a voice for the people who need us most. And sometimes that's not always the most popular thing to do. But while it may not be the most popular thing to do, it is the right thing to do. And not only is it the right thing to do, it's the critical thing to do. And I think the huge fail in this sometimes is that we don't see the bigger picture, right? But what I talked about earlier, that statement that you opened up with, that icebreaker, when everyday Arkansans win, we all win, that's what it takes. We live in ecosystems. And when one level of that system is not doing well, guess what? We're all going to feel that impact. So we have to keep pushing and fighting for one another. And that is what that statement means to me. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, one of my guests started it and I've been carrying it on. It's like when people say something like that, it's like say that a little louder so the folks in the church, back of the church can hear it. I mean, just, people need to understand. And I hope that, it's been 250 years and we still ain't quite got to that level of political maturity yet. But I hope that at some point in time that in America, people understand that when people are succeeding, that benefits everybody. And, holding other people down or not lifting other people up, whether it's deliberate or not, hurts everybody. And so I appreciate the way that you framed that. Last question. I did have one more, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But my last question is, what has been your most satisfying moment in your current role?
I would have to say my most satisfying moment. And, every day I wake up, I'm like that person that wakes up every morning so full of energy, and I I can see it, right? And it's a crazy thing because I always think about, how God gives each of us purpose. He gives each of us a vision. And I don't know, I have so many, and not to sound, I don't know, one way or the other, but I have so many moments in which I feel like that. Like, this work is truly rewarding for me. If I could scale it down, I guess maybe to one thing, if you will, it's just knowing, that when wake up in the morning, when I send an email, or when attend a meeting, or when I'm in front of this person or that person, or that those occurrences matter, right? That each action is going to impact somebody's life in a positive way. And that for me is the most gratifying thing. I can't just scale it down to one single thing, but looking at the sum of it all, like, it all matters. And I may not see the change in my lifetime, the change that I like, because, as leaders, like, we have this thought, right, of what change is going to look like. Like, for Martin Luther King, it was the mountaintop, right? For Moses even went up a mountain. And for Nehemiah, he had his wall. And sometimes we don't get to see that in completion in our lifetime, but it's having the faith that that change is going to take place. And I look at it like this, like, little Tomekia, I'm doing my part, but somebody's going to come behind me. So I have the opportunity to plant the seed. Somebody else can water the seed. Somebody else can grow it and nurture it into something beautiful. So I'm saying all that to say this. I think it all matters. And for me, that's the rewarding part of it. Just knowing that I have a hand to play in that somewhere.
Yeah. So in summary, you're saying that your most satisfying moment is being present and being at the table and being in the moment.
That is a great way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And then, you talked about the seed and the watering and the cultivation and the growth, but there's got to be a harvest too, right? And that's the ultimate goal we want, no matter where that happens in our timeline or is beyond our timeline. If what we're doing now, there's a harvest at the end, then that makes that work satisfying. So I feel you on that. I do. If people want to get involved with the Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association, whether it's through the state organization or through their local community action agency, how can they do that? And if people want to get in touch with you directly, how can they do that?
Sure. So there are several ways that they can do that. My email is T as in Tom Moore, my last name, More, at acaa.org. They can email me. They can hit us up on any of our social media pages. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and X. And they can just type in Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association, and we will pop up. They can also visit our website. I did mention that we're upgrading it, but they can still utilize that link, which is www.acaa.org. And the final point of contact, they can always reach us at the office at 501-372-0807.
All right. Well, Tomekia Moore, I really appreciate having the time with you this morning. For you to come on, it's really been an honor to do that. I wish you much continued success in the good work that you're doing and being present where we need to have a presence. And, I just wish you and your staff and everybody out there doing the work at those 15 community action agencies throughout the state of Arkansas continued success and a happy holiday season.
Well, same to you. This was fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. All right, guys, and we're going to catch y'all on the other side. All right, we are back. So I want to thank Bremond MacDougall, Lisa Cooper, and Tomekia Moore for coming on to the podcast. It is always a delight to have Bremond and Lisa come on. Their enthusiasm for finding these literary works and republishing them and getting them back into the hands of readers is infectious. And is, like I said, it's always a joy to talk to them. And they're engaged politically and pay attention to things. But the cool thing is that instead of like running for office or being part of this group, they find these books that are very, very relevant to what's happening now that were written like 100, 150 years ago, and that's an incredible talent and very, very resourceful. And I greatly appreciate what they do to contribute to our enlightenment, because again, enlightenment is the goal, right? And then having the privilege for the first time to talk to Tomekia Moore, who is basically the leader of all the community action agencies in the state of Arkansas. Those organizations were created by Congress to make sure that rural communities, underserved communities, had access and resources to things they need. Primarily the biggest or their most known service is Head Start, which has contributed to more Black children being ready for college than any other program that's ever been created. So much so that everybody else started talking about, well, we need to have a pre-K program and all this stuff, because that's what Head Start is. And it's one of the most successful government programs ever created. So, and just to be in that kind of work to make sure that people are not only taken care of, but they're heard, right? Because as you heard in the interview, sometimes the most important thing is just to be in the room, just to be a presence, just to be able to sit at the table and voice your concerns. Sometimes that's all that's needed. It's not necessarily that you have to pass a bill or have a big protest. Just get in the room. And once the voice is heard, it can't go back. They can try to deny, but it's in their brain. And even if you don't get credit for what happens, if it happens, it's because you had that presence in the room, right? Good trouble. Getting engaged. That's all we really ask people to do, is just get engaged. And you don't have to be paid to get engaged. That doesn't have to be your job. But as a citizen, we need you to be engaged. Sometimes that means you're a little angry. Okay. But just like I tell people, don't go to the grocery store hungry. Don't go to the voting booth angry, right? The motivation to get engaged might have been anger, but you've got to be reasonable and rational in choosing leadership, right? And on that note, I had several friends in different states running in runoffs. They didn't win, but in a couple of cases, the person that won, I'm not I knew them too. And I don't think that they're bad people. I think they're going to do a good job. They just happen to be running against my friends. You know, on the one hand, though, in one particular race, I was disappointed, and that's with Dante Carter, because Dante, one, was a guest on the show, and then two, the person who won has been the mayor. This city has only had 2 mayors, and this guy is the second mayor. And that race was an aberration compared to the trend that's happening nationwide. Because in the neighboring town, the incumbent mayor got beat, right? The same people that supported Dante supported this young lady in Roswell, and she won. But the folks in Sandy Springs didn't get the memo. Nonetheless, it is what it is, you know, and hopefully, you know, in 4 years, you know, Sandy Springs will catch up with everybody else. And that's not an indictment on Sandy Springs. It's just that I guess they didn't see the current mayor as part of this group, even though his history would say that he's old school as far as this group is concerned. You know, but it's kind of interesting when people run against an incumbent, they don't make it to the runoff, and then they endorse the incumbent that they were running against, instead of building an alliance with somebody that's going to beat that incumbent. I think that's always a fascinating thing in politics. People can do what they want to do. This is not a judgment. I just think it's fascinating. You wanted this person out so bad, you signed up to run. And then when it comes down to somebody who made it to the runoff against the incumbent, you turn around and support the person you were trying to get out of office. I think that's fascinating. You know, but it is what it is. You know, would it have made a difference? I don't know. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm very proud of Dante for how he ran his campaign, and the support that he gathered will go a long way for him, whatever political future he has. You know, I just hate it for Sandy Springs. I think they missed out on an opportunity to go in a different direction. But, you know, they made a choice. And that's all we can do, is offer ourselves up. And, you know, if the people respond to us, so be it. If they don't, it is what it is. At least you were present. At least you had your voice out there. And just like Miss Bain in Nashville, who ran in a district that was designed for a Republican to win forever, or at least for the next 10 years, you know, she made it a close and competitive race. And in her concession phone call, according to her, in her phone call, she basically said, look, the reason why this election was close because people want this and the people want that. So whatever agenda you talking about, you need to incorporate that, what the people want, in your time in Congress. And it may be a short time because this was a special election. So he's got to turn right around and start campaigning now because, you know, the regular election is less than 365 days away. No, actually, yeah, about 330 some days. So, you know, we'll see. It didn't sound like he was too receptive based on his speech that he gave in his victory speech, but we'll see. We'll see, especially the way the political winds are blowing. And, you know, it's still encouraging that people are getting engaged, some places more than others, but they're getting there. And if the voices of reason and the voices of logic continue to prevail, we'll see a change on the first Tuesday in November in 2026. We'll see it. And I don't know how big of a change it'll be, but it'll be significant. It will set a foundation, I think, for a generation. Yeah, it's kind of lofty language for an election, but that's just the way I feel. I just think that people are tired of being disappointed. Now, we're all human beings, and, whether you have a favorite sports team or, whatever, family member, somebody's going to disappoint you. But when government disappoints you, that really hurts, because when government makes decisions, could be a life or death decision for you. It's definitely quality of life decisions for you. But in some cases, it could be life or death. And some people don't look at government that serious, but you should. Because if, for all these years, we've been saying people need to get vaccinated, and now we have an administration that says, no, not so much. And now measles are back, right? So, life and death decisions. It's real. Whether people can afford their health care or not, that's a life and death decision. So, I want people to pay attention and take this stuff really, really serious. I don't want it to be consuming. Again, don't want you to be a political junkie like me. I just need you to be engaged. I need you to pay attention. And I need you, like I say in my promo, I don't want you to keep this a secret. I need you to tell people. I need you to do what Jesus told the disciples. Spread the good news. Talk to folks that they're, and debate people. Well, it's your family members, your friends, co-workers. Talk to them. Say, hey, look, I think there's a better way to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to vote for somebody that I think is going to take us in a different direction. And not worry about whether you're going to get kicked out of the country club or not. Or, they're not going to invite you to poker night or somebody's bar mitzvah. It doesn't matter. You have a right as an American to voice your opinion. And that's the one thing that I guess the current conservatives, the MAGA people don't get, is that, we get that you may feel as though you haven't been heard. But we make the argument that in the history of the country, that opinion's been out there for a while. And sometimes we agree with that, but most of the time we don't. And then it all depends on the issue, right? If you're talking about something, again, like healthcare, yeah, we can have pros and cons about that. When it comes to the liberties of human beings, human rights, yeah, most of us are not going to agree with that. So you just have to deal with the fact that people are not going to agree with you all the time. Does it frustrate you? Sure, because it frustrates us when you don't see the value of human life, right? Except, before birth. Anyway, I just really want people to get to a point where they can be comfortable respecting something different and not be afraid of it, right? When we was little, we used to play this game called the Cooties. And it was basically a game of it or tag. It's like somebody said, well, you got the Cooties, and then everybody tries to run away from it, try to get back to home base before you get tagged or whatever. And then if you get tagged and you got the Cooties, and everybody runs away from you, right? Political thought is not like that. It's not inherently bad. Progressive ideas are definitely not the Cooties. It's just a change. I mean, don't you feel strange that you can go to certain countries and you can see clean streets and no homeless people? You see high-speed rail, and then you come back here where we talk about we're the baddest and best country to ever exist. We're the wealthiest country on the planet. We have the most powerful military, yada, yada, yada. But we ain't got the cool stuff like these other people do. Again, you can make as much money as you want, but I don't think we need to have anybody worth $1 trillion if people don't have a place to live. I don't think we need to have a trillionaire. Healthcare is not free for every American citizen. I don't think we need to have a trillionaire if college education is not free, right? I just don't think that. I think that if we're the wealthiest nation in the world, we need to show that. Everybody needs to have a house. Everybody that can work needs to have a job. Everybody that wants to go to college can go, And that's not necessarily a liberal idea. Dwight D. Eisenhower created a student loan program as a national security measure, period. The Freedmen's Bureau was created so that enslaved people could buy property and become full citizens, live a life that was abundant after being enslaved. That was supposed to be the reparations. There was literally a government agency set up for the formerly enslaved. And we let it slip away, right? So if you're done what you're supposed to do, it's like the old Fram commercial. You can pay me now or you can pay me later. People are upset about reparations, but it's like if the Freedmen's Bureau had not been undercut, if it was created as a standalone agency rather than stuck in the Department of Defense, we wouldn't have this conversation about reparations now because it would have been taken care of. If you don't follow through, you don't know what direction things are going to go. In golf, if you don't follow through on your swing, you can't control the flight of the ball. It's the same in public policy. If you don't follow through, you don't know what direction that legislation is going to lead to. If there's no controls, if there's no commitment, it can go off the rails. There's no checks and balance, right? So, that's where we are. And we gotta fix it. We gotta get it right. We gotta do capitalism right. I don't care how much money you make. I don't. I do care that I'm paying double what you're paying in taxes and I make considerably less money than you. I do care about that. I don't think that's fair. Nonetheless, that's where we are. And I think we need to change that, right? I mean, it's just common sense things that don't seem common because we let greed and avarice and all this other stuff take hold, right? So as far as Gump would say, that's all I got to say about that. I just really hope that in my lifetime, we just had a sister who passed away at the age of 111. I pray that if I get to be 111, that I will see the seeds that are being planted now come to fruition and get harvested. That's what I was talking to Sister Moore about. I would love to see this nation really live up to its fullest potential. And the only way we can do that is if we stop worrying about how much melanin somebody has in their skin and are more concerned with how much talent that they have to offer. I don't care how you wear your hair. I don't care how many tattoos you got. I don't care who you live with or love. I just want you to contribute to society in a positive way. I want you to be involved in the uplifting of everyone around you. Whatever my religious beliefs are my religious beliefs. And it's my choice. It's my life to live. Can't judge anybody else. What I do want is that regardless of our differences, physical, psychological, whatever, sociological, that when we decide that we need to do something to make this country better, we can lock arms and make that happen. That's all I care about. And maybe that's a kumbaya moment. I don't know. But I think in order for this country to move forward, we got to take those steps. You know, nobody thought that a colony, whether it was 13 colonies or one colony of enslaved people, that they could defeat a major power. But the Americans did it. The American colonists did it. The Haitian slaves did it. You know, and throughout history, we've seen the French Revolution. We've seen that, right? Where the people make a decision, hey, look, it's time to change what's happening. And throughout history, people are not really too keen on being part of an empire. They kind of want to have, even if it's just an illusion, right? They want to have independence. They want to have the right to live their lives the way that they want to. All of us have to circumscribe the rules, right? We call them laws, but that's part of a society. But we still want to feel free. We still want to have the liberty to pursue what we want. It's just a basic common thing. I think that's why pamphlets like Common Sense and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States were written the way that they were written, with the addition of the Bill of Rights. You can go back to the Magna Carta. When people wanted to govern, they wanted to have rights and freedom. They wanted to have their voices heard. They wanted to be respected. And I don't understand a political party that doesn't get that. I don't understand a political ideology that doesn't get that. Not a select few, everybody. So I don't know. Like I said, I hope that we can get there. And if we can't get there in my lifetime, I hope that me and others will have done enough to plant that seed. And I think where we're at now, there's going to be a lot of seeds planted, and we're going to get there. Because, you know, each time we keep saying it can't get worse, it can't get worse. It probably can if we don't change our ways. But I think we're moving in the right direction. And I appreciate those of you all who listen. And I appreciate those of you all who are engaged. And now we just got to get more. I could have talked about what's going on with HEGSF and, you know, what's going on with the redistricting stuff and all that. But all that falls under the broad picture about respecting others. We got to respect other human beings. That is the only way that a country that is supposed to be the greatest in the world can live up to that title. All right, that's all I got. Thank y'all for listening. Till next time.
NBG Podcast Network.